Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Don't forget you can continue the conversation with me over on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. I think you're finally getting the message. There's a few people following me, and I'm very excited to talk to anyone who's constructive and wants to talk and have a little bit of a debate. Now today, I've done you a DCEU Daily, an episode of Smallville, the saviour of Superman, and right now I'm uploading a Doctor Who video about the future of the show. So I think I've earned the right to talk about something that's non-fictional, non-geek. Today is World Mental Health Day. Another excuse for everyone who doesn't suffer with mental health to insult us. Let me read you something. Now, there's a soap, a continuing drama called EastEnders over in the UK, for those of you who have never heard of it. And I'm going to read you a quote, what Martin says to his daughter, Bex, Rebecca. It will pass. I promise you, sweetheart, it will pass. Mental health illness never passes. It may be managed, it may be dealt with, it may be coped with, but it will never pass. Now, on top is the BBC EastEnders kind of Twitter account, and it quote tweets the quote. There's always someone to turn to. There's always a way through. World Mental Health Day. For help and advice, visit bbc.co.uk, bbc.co.uk action line, or you can call 0800 066 066, hashtag EastEnders. I haven't got an issue with most of that, but I have got an issue with this. There's always someone to turn to. Is there? I can't see anyone. Can you? Is there anyone here? Is anyone going to come in? No. There is not always someone to turn to. Mental illness is something very seclusive. It's very lonely. And nobody understands but the sufferer. And here's another thing they won't tell you, the so-called experts, right? They won't tell you that it's seclusive, that it's not an easy solution. Why is it that everybody who talks about this doesn't have a clue what they're talking about? What's the thing that they say to people? Go and talk to someone. If I'm suffering from mental health, right, and I'm on my own, and I've been on my own for many, many years, how do I just get up just because a celebrity or some doctor online has said, go and talk to someone? Really? This is the invisible illness that nobody can see, but we can feel it. Mental illness, I'll tell you what it's like. You're screaming on the outside, but you dare not scream on the outside because you don't want people to hear you, because you know what's going to happen. Right, I just had to pause to find another quote from a woman called Risa Hontiveros, right? I think she's a senator, right? Men have mental health concerns too. Men can also get depressed or traumatized. One byproduct of toxic masculinity is that they aren't allowed to talk about these problems. Part of dismantling macho culture is helping men care about their mental health. I know many, many men, and we do care about our mental health, especially those of us I've met through being a sufferer myself. And I'm going to talk about my experiences with mental health very, very soon. So I'm going to tell you what I quoted her, and this is what I said. Okay, Risa, I'm sure your heart is in the right place, but I'm a guy who was sectioned, and I can assure you my issues wasn't toxic masculinity, a fictional term to say the least. My issue was my mind being on a different level to others. I've always been able to express myself, and this is the point. I've always been able to express myself. I've never been afraid to cry or show my emotions to other men. That's not who I am. Now, I know there's some guys out there who are macho, who are too scared to show their emotions. But this is the problem. Record amounts of men are suffering with depression and poor mental health. Record amounts, more than women. Maybe the cause is of this fictional toxic masculinity they keep on bringing up. Maybe every time we go on social media, all these women saying we're horrible people and we need to change. Maybe that's part of the problem too. Now, in my quote tweet I just read to you, I admitted something, that I'd been sectioned under the Mental Health Act many, many years ago. I knew a very young girl, a teenage girl. We were friends, and she killed herself. And this is why I was sectioned, because after the months and days after that, I blamed myself. I couldn't get away from it, that I was friends with someone. I saw her every day. She used to send me messages every day. She'd come from a broken home. I met her via the foster care system, through the social system, because I was doing some voluntary work there. And everything I knew about her, I didn't see the fact that she was suffering. The last time I saw her, she seemed okay. I didn't see through the facade. The facade was that she was saying goodbye to me, and I didn't even know that. But reading between the lines, I know that now, but it's too late now. I will always blame myself for her death. Always. And that's what drove me to being sectioned. I became very ill up here, very ill, from the blame. I couldn't handle it. A human being had died, and I could have stopped it. And that's what did me in. That's what the reason I had to be sectioned. I was a danger to myself, not anyone else, but to myself. But the truth is, I've suffered with ill mental health, mental illness, from being a child, from tearing my mum's plants to shreds when she used to tell me off, and many, many other things. So I've always had issues, always. I am not cured. Obviously, I'm not sectioned anymore. I had months and months and months and years of talking to a counsellor. I still take medication today. When I take that medication, I can't do any videos. I have to wait quite a few hours. So obviously, sometimes, and most times, I do it in the morning before I take the medication. It's difficult because obviously I need the medication, but I fight it. I fight it because doing these videos is something really, really important to me. So I'm insulted and offended by people who know nothing about mental illness. Mental illness isn't one thing. A cold is one thing. A flu is one thing. Cancer is obviously several things, different things. It can affect different parts of the body. And I suppose you could call mental illness the cancer, the invisible cancer. There's so many forms of mental illness. How many times do you go on Twitter and you've got teenagers saying, my mental health isn't good today? And you think, why? And they say, my boy didn't text me. Oh no. They talk about mental illness like it's a fashion accessory. Everybody's talking about it. And in a way, that's good. But a lot of it is attention seeking. So while all these pretty young girls are going on about their mental health, the real sufferers keep quiet. How do we get those people to talk about their problems? Well, unfortunately, we live in a society who believe the only cure to mental health is for people suffering with mental illness to go to them, instead of them going to the sufferer. It's the only time where someone's suffering with an illness where the doctor won't kind of, it's like, right, they're suffering with mental illness, speak to someone. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's fine. I'll just get up. Who do I talk to? Imagine you live on your own. Imagine you have no one. Who are you going to talk to about mental illness? A stranger? I want people to talk to people. I want people to get up and ring these numbers and email these, websites. That would be great, and I'm sure a few people do it. But life isn't that simplistic. The problem is, in mainstream media, they have simplified what mental illness is. And for me, this is the problem. I said earlier in this video, mental illness is like screaming on the inside, but being too afraid to scream on the outside. If you're watching this and you're a sufferer, you know exactly what I mean. I'm very afraid to stand on top of the escalator and go down. So when I'm standing on there, I'm screaming on the inside, I'm sweating, but I have to keep calm because there's a dozen people around me and I don't want to scare them. Why'd you do it then, Mick? Why'd you go on top of the escalator? Because I don't want to be afraid of it. I want to beat my fear. But to this day, I'm always afraid. When I'm sitting on an aeroplane, I'm scared before takeoff. That's the only time I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the turbulence and the takeoff. So when we're actually taking off, inside, I'm literally imagining myself getting up and jumping off the plane in midair. But I don't do that. I literally squeeze the chair like this, and I'm like this, constantly, until it takes off. And then I look beside me and I think, right, we're steady, I'm okay. And even during the flight, I'm like, this is like hovering in the air. It could fall down at any minute. A lot of elements of mental health are about fear. It is about fear. It's about controlling your mind. Now, people who suffer can't control their mind. Their minds are active all the time. Anxiety is another form of mental health. Now, people suffering with anxiety think too much. They think about what could happen. They think about the dangers of everything. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I'm not good enough? What if my partner doesn't fancy me anymore? It's all the time. It's fear. Mental illness is about fear as well. You see, this is the thing. More of us who are suffering need to talk about it. And I'm talking about genuine sufferers. I'm talking about the real people. They do these World Mental Health Days, mental health awareness, but I don't see much awareness. I hear from people who have never suffered a day in their lives, or think they're suffering with mental illness when they're not. Their pets died, or they've run out of fruit pastels, or whatever. That is not anxiety. That is not depression. Mental illness has very little to do with being unhappy. That's not what depression is. You know what? I read an article today. Record amounts of teenagers are not happy. And I read the article and I'm thinking, am I supposed to be shocked by this? Am I supposed to care about this? They're trying to link teenagers being unhappy within themselves and within their lives. Something to do with mental health. No, that's a different affliction. Record amounts of teenagers are unhappy because they're sitting on their own, on their devices all day, and they don't go out there. They don't do things. They don't live a life. They live a fake life online. That's why they're upset. That's not mental illness. That's something else. I'm sorry. There's too many people putting the mental illness label on everything. And as a sufferer, it's insulting. I know there's loads of you out there suffering in silence. I do. And the truth is, if I didn't have a breakdown, if I wasn't sectioned under the Mental Health Act, I would never have got help. I would never have stood up and called anyone. I wouldn't have told anyone because people saw me as one thing. People judged me. So I didn't want to come out and admit what was wrong with me. It wasn't about toxic masculinity. Imagine that woman saying that. Imagine using something as serious as mental illness to forward her feminist agenda. Imagine that. How horrible these people are. There are thousands of us suffering with different forms of mental illness every day. And it's like nobody cares. It's just talked about because it's cool to talk about. When I finish this video, I will go back to Twitter. And many of my followers, many of the people that I follow will witter on about mental health awareness, even though they know nothing about it. Things need to change. People are suffering in silence when they shouldn't do. Because, I tell you what, the Joker movie is so on it with mental illness and how it works. Even though that film is set in 1981, when you think of the point of Arthur losing the right to his medication and his social worker, that tells you everything. And if you think, I know my arm keeps on falling off, not very cool, is it? But that film actually is the first thing, whether it's TV or a film, that actually gets what mental illness is and how secluding it is, how difficult it is. And Arthur Fleck tries his best to manage it. He wants to make his dreams come true. He wants to make people laugh. But ultimately, Arthur Fleck doesn't break down because he doesn't get what he wants. He breaks down ultimately because society is not there for him. That's what this society is. This society is very good about talking about things, saying the right things, but they don't actually want to help you. All these celebrities telling you to go and talk to someone. If you knocked on their door and you said, listen, I'm having a bad day, really bad anxiety day, they will get their security to will you away. That's the point here. nobody cares. Nobody truly cares. I don't believe it. The only people who truly care are the people who have gone through it. I'm managing my illness, but I could be sectioned at any time, let's be honest. Anything can happen. There is no cure for mental illness. And that's why I quoted you what they said on the EastEnders. Everything's going to be okay. It'll pass. No, my friends, it will not pass. It can only be managed.